Have you ever looked at a massive mountain and thought, you know what? I could carve an entire 10-story temple out of that, starting at the very top and working my way straight down. Yeah, probably not. But 1,200 years ago in India, a group of master architects did exactly that. Today in this explainer, we're diving into the mystery of the Kailasa Temple at Ellora. It stands today as the world's absolute largest monolithic structure, meaning the whole thing is carved from one single continuous piece of rock. They literally found a mountain with the footprint of a modern football field and just kept removing stone until this impossibly intricate temple was the only thing left standing.
And to really wrap your head around this, we need to talk about a staggering number, 200,000. That's the amount of solid rock in tons that had to be excavated and hauled away just to reveal the temple underneath. To put that into perspective, if you were to move that much rock today, you'd need a fleet of about 11,000 modern heavy-duty dump trucks. And our ancient builders? They pulled this off without a single piece of heavy machinery, zero dynamite, and absolutely no modern laser guides. So naturally, when you look at that sheer scale, the internet's favorite question inevitably pops up. Was this built by aliens? Or, maybe superhumans? You have to remember, the defining challenge of carving top-down out of a single rock is that there is zero margin for error. None. If you strike your chisel just a fraction too hard and accidentally snap off an elephant's trunk or a pillar's base, you can't exactly run to the hardware store and glue a new piece of rock back on. The mistake is permanent. Because the execution is so utterly flawless, people genuinely still wonder if otherworldly forces were involved. But as we'll see, the archaeological evidence tells a far more fascinating, incredibly human story.
Sorry to disappoint the alien theorists out there, but archaeologists who've done deep structural analyses of the site have found clear, undeniable tool marks all along the surrounding rock walls and sculptures. This actually proves that ancient humans used perfectly ordinary, everyday hammers and chisels to accomplish this impossible feat. There was no alien laser cutter involved here, just immense human ingenuity, unimaginable patience, and a level of stoneworking mastery that has completely been lost to time.
To really understand how they pulled this off, it helps to look at the evolution of rock architecture itself.
You see, the Kailasa Temple wasn't just some overnight miracle. It was actually the grand climax of an ancient tradition that had been evolving for a millennium. Our ancestors didn't just wake up one morning and decide to carve a mountain. They practiced. The whole thing started about 2,300 years ago in the 3rd century BCE with the Barber Caves, where the Maurya Empire carved granite so incredibly smoothly that the walls felt like glass, creating these insane surround sound acoustic properties. Then we got the beautiful Buddhist prayer halls at Ajanta, followed by the Elephanta Caves dedicated to Lord Shiva in the 5th century. By the 7th century, the Pallavan dynasty leveled up and began carving entire freestanding temples, known as the Pancharathas. And finally, in the 8th century, all that generational accumulated knowledge reached its absolute peak at Ellora.
But even knowing that rich architectural history, we run straight into a massive timeline paradox. We know exactly who commissioned the project, thanks to ancient copper plates dug up in Baroda. They clearly reveal it was King Krishna I of the mighty Rashtrakuta dynasty. But here's where the math just stops making sense. King Krishna only ruled from 756 to 774 CE. That's a reign of just 18 years. So we're supposed to believe they built a 10-story temple by hauling away 200,000 tons of solid basalt rock in under 2 decades? For a long time, historians flat out refused to believe it.
And that disbelief sparked a major clash of historical theories that lasted for decades. Back in 1952, a renowned German archaeologist named Hermann Goetz argued that the temple must have taken 500 years to build, passing through the hands of 8 consecutive kings. But fast forward to 1982, and an Indian archaeologist named M.K. Davalekar came along and argued that no, it actually was built in just 10 to 12 years under that single king. So why was Goetz so utterly convinced it took half a millennium?
Well, Goetz's 500-year theory was actually built on a very solid observation. The temple features 10 distinctly different artistic styles. For example, if you look at the Gajalakshmi panel near the entrance, it looks stylistically completely different from the massive elephants and lions carved into the temple's plinth. In the world of archaeology, art styles usually take decades or even centuries to evolve, so Goetz logically concluded that 8 different kings from the 8th all the way to the 13th century must have continuously added to the temple. It was a really solid theory, right up until it was completely dismantled.
And the way that theory was dismantled all comes down to the master builders.
Davalekar started looking closely at the actual political history of King Krishna I. In 757 CE, just a year into his reign, the king went to war against the rival Chalukya dynasty, and he won. After his victory, he laid eyes on their spectacular Virupaksha temple at Padadakal, He was so blown away by its sheer beauty that he didn't just take gold or jewels as war spoils. No, he literally took the temple's master architects and sculptors back to his capital at Ellora as war prizes.
Which essentially created the ancient world's ultimate construction dream team. The architects Krishna captured were Chalukiyans, renowned for their incredible design skills. But it gets better. Some of the artists within that captured group were originally from the Pahlavan dynasty in the south, experts in high-relief sculpting who had previously been captured by the Chalukiyans. Combine them with Krishna's own local Rashtrakutan stonecutters who knew the local basalt rock inside and out, and you have magic. So those 10 different art styles Hermann Goetz found, they weren't from different eras separated by centuries. They were the result of a diverse, cross-cultural dream team working side by side at the exact same time.
Okay, so we have our dream team. Now, let's dive into exactly how these ancient engineering techniques allowed them to pull this off in barely a decade.
Their secret weapon was an ancient architectural text called the Manasara. The master architects, known as Sthapatis, used the profound knowledge inside this text as their playbook. Before a single chisel ever struck stone, they actually used specialized tools to tap the basalt rock and just listened. Through sound alone, they could identify if the mountain had internal cracks that would compromise the structure before they even started digging.
Once they sound tested and found the perfect, crack-free mountain, they didn't just start hacking away at random. They mapped the entire blueprint directly onto the roof of the mountain. Then, they used this ingeniously simple trick. They drilled small lines of holes into the basalt, hammered perfectly dry wooden wedges into those holes, and poured water over them. The dry wood would absorb the water, rapidly swell up, and the extreme pressure would cleanly split the rock in perfect, predictable lines. Seriously, no explosives necessary.
Using this water and wood wedge technique, they isolated a massive central rectangular block by carving 3 incredibly deep trenches around it. To do that, they had to excavate over 2 million cubic feet of solid rock. Now that sounds like a task that should take an absolute lifetime, doesn't it?
Well, let's look at the math Devalakar did. When you break it down, it actually becomes incredibly reasonable. Imagine you have a highly skilled team of just 250 workers. If each worker is responsible for removing a totally manageable 4 cubic feet of rock a day, that gives you a total daily output of 1,000 cubic feet. At that steady pace, removing 2 million cubic feet of rock to dig those massive trenches would only take about 5.5 years.
But the real kicker, the ultimate secret to their speed, was simultaneous carving. They didn't just wait around to finish the trenches before starting the artistic stuff. The very second the rock cutters exposed the top portion of that central block, the sculptors swooped in and immediately began carving the intricate spires and roofs. The excavators just kept moving down, and the sculptors chased right behind them. This highly coordinated, overlapping workflow is exactly how they completed the entire exterior and interior of the world's largest monolithic temple in roughly 12 years.
So the math works out, the timeline is solved. But there is still one missing piece to this puzzle.
We can't wrap up this explainer without touching on one final lingering enigma. Where on earth did all that removed rock actually go? We're talking about 200,000 tons of debris, 11,000 modern trucks worth of stone. Experts guess that it was probably broken down and used as foundation for local roads, or maybe nearby buildings, or that the smaller pieces simply eroded into the soil over the last 1,300 years. But the honest truth? There is zero definitive proof today of where that mountain of rubble went. It's simply vanished. So looking at the sheer impossible scale of the Kailasa Temple and the brilliance of the human minds that carved it top down, what do you think happened to it?